Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Southerner's Northern Garden. So today I wanted to give you a short walk around and show you some updates in the garden. But my main priority is to tell you why I do not like metal edging. I've had several subscribers comment that they want to know what's around my garden beds, and while I installed it about 3 years ago, I'm not very happy with it, and I'll tell you the reasons why. But first, off to see the beautiful things. So my first update is this container right here, the 22 annual container where I just crammed a bunch of discount annuals into one container. It's doing really well. So you can see the Supertunia Royal Velvet, the Sparkling Rose, 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, the sweet potato vine, all of the other things in there. I did end up converting this to the regular drip line. So you can see here, I actually capped my drip where I had it installed and run a separate line down through there, and it connects to the same drip system that my Supertunias and my ferns are on, which runs, you can kind of see here, I need to get some mulch and cover it up, but it runs around the porch here and connects back there and into the sprinkler system itself onto my beehive watering system. My roses have started flushing back a little bit. This is Roald Dahl. It's a very beautiful orangey yellow rose here. We have the Supertunia bubblegum looking magnificent. I've actually quite decided that it's just going to take over this fireworks grass and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not interested in cutting it back because it's so glorious. But you can see this beautiful fireworks grass in here. I don't like to handle it so much. These Supertunias get super sticky. Maybe that's a better name for them, super sticky petunias. This side of the garden is looking a bit tired at this time of year. A lot of stuff is going out of bloom just because it's been so hot. But this butterfly bush is looking really great. This is a Pugster series, which this is as big as this butterfly bush gets. If you're interested in the Pugster series, it comes in this color, pink, white, and there may be a couple other colors here and there, darker purple, but they're great because they just stay really small. A lot of butterfly bushes get super big. So the Pugster series is a great one if you have limited space and you enjoy butterfly bushes that produce really thick blooms that also do pretty well in vases. They last a pretty good long time. The problem is getting stem length on them just because they are so short stemmed and it's a shorter shrub. As I mentioned, the roses are coming back into bloom, and this one needs to be deadheaded a little bit. This is 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, but it does have beautiful pink roses on it. And this is the Zinfandel hydrangea that I mentioned several times that did not do very well last year. This year it is making up for it, and it is putting on a show. It's starting to brown a little bit because this is so hot on this side of the house. I may need to give it a little more water. But I'm really excited about the show it put on this year. I will probably be doing my hydrangea tour in the coming week because the limelights finally started blooming or in the process of blooming. And before any of these blooms brown too much from the heat we're having, I'll go ahead and do that tour. So it'll be coming in the next week or so, hopefully. Check out all of these gorgeous blueberry cherry tomatoes I have. It is absolutely loaded up. I actually had a bowl of cherry tomatoes for lunch today. One of my favorite roses, the Poet's Wife, is blooming again for its second time this season. I love the color of this rose. It's probably one of my favorites in the garden, but the habit has been a little bit out of control. As you can see, it puts on these very tall stems and just has flowers right at the top. And even though I've trimmed it back several times this season, it continues to do that. So we might have to find a better space for it. I'll give it another year or so and see how it does. It might be happier elsewhere. It seems to be really happy right here because of its growth, but it just doesn't look great in front of these hydrangeas, which will eventually get a little taller. They'll get 3 and 4 to 5 foot tall and wide, so they'll completely fill this space here. But I might need to put something a little shorter so it doesn't look quite as funny right here. This rose is Olivia Austin by David Austin. I got it this past year, or early this spring, I mean, and it's looking great. It's put on a lot of growth already, so I'm really impressed with it. This is the rose that I was supposed to get last year, and I was accidentally sent the incorrect one, so I'm happy it made it to my garden this year. The Pinky Winky hydrangeas are certainly giving themselves their name. They're turning very pink for the season, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The blooms continue to get a little longer, so we've got some panicles that are getting quite large, which is great. Once again, these are only their first year in the ground, this is their second season, so they've had one whole year and a few months in the ground. If you've not heard, Proven Winners is having their summerific week, which is related to these hibiscus, these perennial hibiscus. This is 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 and it is an absolutely gorgeous, look at this little bee here, trying to find some pollen. It's a very gorgeous bloom here. Let's see if I can pull one. It's the end of the day. These are like daylilies. They only bloom for one day, but it has many buds all over it still. It's been blooming for about 2 weeks already, and it's still just covered in buds. But this is what the blooms look like. As I mentioned, this is the end of the day, so we've had a lot of the day ones fade off, and all these new ones put on to bring some joy to the garden tomorrow. I am still absolutely covered up with figs, and I still have not got out here and put it on my bird netting yet, which is going to be a problem starting soon if we don't get that resolved. So I need to get out here this weekend and put my bird netting on it. It's one of those tasks that won't take very long, but you just put it aside and put it aside until it's almost too late. I know we all have those problems. The Vigo garden bed dahlia patch is doing great. We've got some dahlias. I've actually just cut and deadheaded a bunch of them yesterday, so we don't have a ton of blooms out here. I think I've showed you this one before. It's called Small World. I need to get out here and rearrange my tags that I have for the ones that come in the groupings that I got from Eden Brothers, because I still haven't come out here. This one I picked on my Instagram yesterday. I'm not sure the variety name. It came in an Eden Brothers packet, but I'm not sure it matches any of the names that was in the packet. So I've got to take a better look at that and see if I can figure out what it was. In my Instagram post, these purple fades almost completely to white as the bloom becomes a little more spent, and it just gets massive. It's like as big as my head, so that's quite large. Here's another dahlia. And then we have all these whites here, which is the ones they're very prolific. These are also in that Eden Brothers mix, so I don't know the exact name of them, but it has just produced a ton of white blooms for me, and you can see it's just got buds still all over it and coming up. I was able to get my blueberry bed set up and filled. I actually threw in the bottom of this soil all of the perennial cutback that I did in my last video. Because it was quite a lot, and I didn't want to throw it in my trash can, leave all that good organic material, so I just put it in the bottom and covered it up with soil. Same method I kind of used when I planted my dahlia bed, so that was a great way of dispose of it. As a result, the soil level may drop a little bit next year, and I may just have to add a little bit more soil. But when we have a cool streak of weather, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my blueberries that I have planted around the patio that I mentioned I'm transplanting, and put them in here. I don't want to transplant them when it's super hot out, because they're already going to be in shock a little bit from being transplanted. And I just want to give them the nicest home as possible. And I also want to get the opportunity to set drip up to this bed. I actually put the drip line here. I just have nothing to connect it to yet until I extend these beds over and extend the drip system this way. So I've got all of that prepared, soil ready. I will have to get 2 more blueberry plants, I think. I'm going to put a total of 5 in this bed, and so there'll be one variety in the center that I have that I've got in my vegetable garden right now in a container. The 2 from the patio are going to go on the ends or next to that one, and then I'll get another variety and put on each end there. So there'll be a total of 5, and hopefully they'll be a lot more happier in this soil because I can make it a little bit more acidic. I've started putting down the landscaping fabric here. Which will be, you can see the post maybe down there right in front of that arborvitae. That is going to be the fence line. So these arborvitae will grow out probably, I expect them to, as close as they are, they're about 5 feet apart, that they will get about 10 foot wide at max. So these green giants typically grow straight up quicker than they grow out. So that'll give them several of years of growth before they start touching the fence at all. One thing that I feel that is important to mention, I'll be taking you along when I put this landscape fabric on that side over there. I do not use landscape fabric in my garden except in instances where I'm not going to be planting anything. So because these trees, I'm giving them room to grow out, this landscape fabric will be just covered with mulch, and that's all that will be here. It's the same landscape fabric I used in the back orchard. It's 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏 Pro, which is honestly the only landscape fabric I will ever use. I'll put a link to it below if you're interested in it. It is a bit pricey, but you can buy it in many different lengths. This is the 5-foot length, so you see there's a stripe on the landscape fabric for each foot. And nothing will grow through this stuff. I put it over green grass. The grass will completely die. That's actually what I did in the mini orchard back there. And it will be a great space that I can just throw mulch over and continue from there. And now the real reason we're here and why I'm going ahead and doing this video, because I mentioned the landscaping fabric here. I've had several subscribers mention and want to know what this metal edging is that I have around my garden. And I'm here to tell you that I don't love it. I'm going to give you a few reasons why it's not good, particularly in our climate, and you can decide whether you like it or not. Number one being that it rusts if it gets nicked. We weed eat around it, and it just simply, this is the 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 brand that you can get from Lowe's, by the way. So we weed eat around it. If it gets nicked by a weed eating line, water infiltrates the coating that's on it. It's like a powder coating, and it just immediately begins to rust. And some people like that look. I don't particularly care for it. And so that's not the primary reason I'm getting rid of it though. The primary reason I am removing it in my garden is because in Ohio, we have really rough winters. The freeze-thaw cycle is very bad sometimes, and I find myself in the spring coming around and knocking this back into the ground several times in the spring and then throughout the summer. If I'm outside anytime during the winter, I will just walk around and kind of press my foot on it to keep it in the ground. So I don't know particularly if this edging was designed to be like put down in the ground several inches. That's the way I have used it, because if I don't do it that way, then because of our freeze-thaw cycles, then it tends to come up even easier. But since I do put it in the ground a little bit, it kind of makes it worse. So I have this edging around all of my older flower beds. You will notice in all of my new flower beds, including the one around the patio right here and the one that's around the willow, I do not have this edging, and that is intentional. All of my new flower beds, I prefer a natural edge. So I renovated my lawn a couple years ago. Before I was into flower beds, I was really into grass. And my lawn is pretty much completely bluegrass. This year looks a little rough because I hadn't spent as much time on it. But bluegrass I picked specifically because it spreads and kind of heals itself. Because bluegrass is a spreading grass, if you have a spreading grass in your yard, I would not recommend this edging. Let me show you what it does. So because bluegrass is a spreading grass, it consistently grows by rhizomes and spreads underground, and it consistently grows through the edging. So all year I have to fight. You can see I pull up this grass right here. Come through and pull up this grass because it grows right under the edging, and it's a pain all around the edging. The reason I put edging around these beds initially, they had plastic edging when we bought the house and it looked awful in my opinion. I actually talked to a landscaper about putting down rock around the entire property and the existing flower beds, and they wanted like $4,000, and that was not in the budget 3 years ago. It's not something I would want to put in the budget now. It's just way too expensive, I think, in my opinion, although it would look really good. In my forever home, maybe definitely. This one, probably not. So I decided to go with this metal edging. It was much better under budget. I think I was able to do all the flower beds that it's currently on for just over $500. It can be expensive. I did all the labor myself. You also have to have a tool to be able to cut the edging if you're on an incline or where you need to end the edging. The lengths of edging they're about, I think they're 8 foot, but they're only good for 7 foot. Because of the way the spikes are attached to it. So they're about $10 per 7 foot, which can add up really quickly. So what I was getting at, if you live in a location where you have a creeping or spreading grass like bluegrass, like creeping bent grass. St. Augustine in Florida particularly is one of them that spreads either over the ground through stolons is what they're called, or under the ground like bluegrass spreads through rhizomes. You will have trouble keeping that grass out of your edging. That's why I prefer a natural edge now. I dig down 4 to 6 inches and I make sure I weed eat every time I cut grass around that grass and that flower bed, and that ensures the grass will not continue to grow into the bed. I still have problems here and there, but it's mostly resolved that issue specifically. The reason I could not naturally edge this bed when I purchased the home or when I decided to switch edging is because the flower beds were so built up with soil and mulch. When our house was built, they brought in some soil and kind of piled the soil up, so there was no choice but to put an edge that would prevent the mulch from washing away, and so I had to go above the ground for that. Now, if I ever chose to extend the flower beds in the front, and I might in the future to get rid of this edging, I would come out about another foot to allow the natural slope of the flower bed to kind of level off better, so it just wouldn't run into the lawn every time it rained. I think I've given you 3 reasons, so the 4th reason is mostly that it can just be difficult to install. I mentioned needing like a special saw, so I initially had a little saw that had a metal cutting blade, and it produces sparks and little pieces of metal that you have to be careful and wire eye protective equipment and ear protection equipment. And it's just kind of tedious and time consuming. Not to mention you have to pound it in the ground with a rubber mallet if you want it to work this way. And it just, for me, it was a great decision I thought at the time, and now I'm not very happy with it because I'm constantly having to pull grass out that's grown under it. It constantly comes out of the ground during the summer and the winter, depending on the frost heave cycles. And if it's bumped, you know, it'll just eventually wiggle out of the ground. So it's just a pain. So that's one reason I'm putting down this landscape fabric. If you'll notice, I actually removed the edging right here. There was edging here, so I'll be removing it around all of these trees, and this will become basically a natural edge. So the fence will be around here. I will be placing a natural edge here. I'm going to run the landscaping fabric under the fence just so I don't have weeds and grass growing under the fence that I have to trim, which will be great. And then I'm just going to create a natural edge a foot or 2 out from the fence, or however much the flower bed along the fence is going to be. And it will look just like all the other flower beds in the backyard. Now, I guess the question is, would I recommend this metal edging to someone who didn't live in the north with bad winters and didn't have a creeping grass, maybe just like a fescue that didn't spread, or any other good southern grass that doesn't spread? Sure, I think it could be done. In instances where I would recommend it outside of grass is if you're trying to divide, say, gravel and mulch and create a barrier there so the mulch isn't going into the gravel and the gravel isn't going into the mulch, or just dividing 2 different substrates like that. One place I have found it successful is around my sidewalks. So let me take you up here to the front and show you what I'm talking about. So you'll notice I have the metal edging along the sidewalk, which is very excellent here because it helps, once again, separate substrates, the concrete wall from the wood mulch. And it has been very great. I like the way the creeping Jenny kind of spills over it and kind of covers it. But at the end of the summer, I can pull back this creeping Jenny for winter. But it also just keeps it very clean and kind of keeps the mulch tidy and in its place. So thank you guys for coming to my TED Talk. This is pretty much why I hate metal edging. I felt bad for these subscribers that are like really excited and want to know what it was. And I would have to tell them each time that I don't like it so much and to wait for this video to figure out why. So I hope this video is helpful for you and that it doesn't discourage you from using metal edging if you're in a climate that it is useful for. I just think in Southwest Ohio, where I have bluegrass, that it is more of a pain than just using a natural edge and weed eating around it and having nice clean lines with the natural mulch up to the side. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful in some instances. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. It's really helpful for my channel and getting it promoted on YouTube. And I hope you guys will stick around. This weekend I will be starting this back here. I will be putting down more landscaping fabric to cover this back side right here. And then I will probably be running at least one, maybe one right now, drip irrigation system to connect this willow bed around to the side and to those blueberry beds so I can get those blueberries transplanted later in the month. And then I'm going to start converting this entire area. You can see we had some grass die back from when the windows for the shed were laying on the ground. I'm not concerned about it because that will be covered with cardboard here in a few weeks, and that will be new flower beds. So I'm excited about the changes this space is going to make in the next 2 or 3 months. It's going to be a long process, going to require a lot of work, but I'm really excited guys about what's coming. So stick around and stay tuned, and talk to you guys later. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Bye everyone.